cleanse our people is not going to be there anymore. It's going to take something away. And they say, if you think about it like that, if you hold those tears inside you, it's going to take much more away from you spiritually. Not only spiritually, but physically. It'll drain you if you don't share your emotions. And so I was very fortunate to have teachers that weren't afraid as men to cry and share. And in this being, with me becoming who I am today, it makes it that much more better for my wife, because I can share more emotion now than back if I had stayed the way I was when I was younger. I don't think I would have a wife today. So that emotion is very important to share and to continue on, because if you put up that dam, it's going to stop all the goodness from coming to you.
And you were talking a little bit earlier too about when I was talking to you about animals, the importance of animals in your culture, mm-hmm. and how that can, I guess, from an emotional standpoint.
A little birdie told me one time. I heard that saying. A little birdie told me. You guys all heard that saying. Well, to this day now, I still in the morning wake up and I look out the door to see what's out there. If it's going to be 3 birds or 1 bird or a whole flock of birds out there. And then I sit there and I watch my day throughout the day to tell me. I could tell you everything about what I do on those days, but again, going back to the teachings, it might not be the same for you. But we utilize the animals. We're taught to look at them because they were gifts from the Creator, beings that we share time with. And in sharing time, they share teachings with us. We look at the eagle, how it soars up, enjoys those thermals, and just lives life nice and easy and breezy. That's why one of our elders, Jerry Oldman, he always says, sit up proud like an eagle. And this is well-being for us. We look at the bear for strength and courage. We look at the doe for its kindness and whatnot. So these are things that we're taught, that our ancestors have somehow put this formula together, that these beings are there to help us. My job since I've become Chioxton was to go out and share with youth things like this, things that we need to get back to looking at and trying to learn what our ancestors had learned millions of years ago, thousands of years ago, and what got them through life. Because we've stepped aside for so long, learning the new way of the newcomers, that some of us have forgotten the way of our ancestors. Once we get back into utilizing the teachings of the animals, of the different strengths that we get from them, once we all start learning stuff like that, our lives will get that much better. These are things that were shared to me by the elders that I spoke to. These are dreams that they had, was that we start learning to look at these things. And we're very fortunate now that the people that we travel with on Mother Earth now are finally starting to get to a point where they want to start learning the way the Stonewall, the First Nations, the human beings have learned for a long time. So I encourage everybody, keep an eye on that little birdie, he'll tell you something. Keep an eye on that bear you see on the side of the road, he'll tell you something. But also keep an eye on those signs up on the side of the road. Sometimes they'll tell you something. You never know, I was driving through Chinatown one day with a friend of mine, and she's really concerned about something she was going through in life. And she came to me to ask for advice. And I started out by saying, well, first of all, I'm not the all-knowing, I'm not even close. I'm here to share what was shared to me by my elders. And in turn, that's why I get called an elder, is because elders or people that share teachings. But as we were driving along, the question that she asked me, there was a mural up on the wall that somebody had painted to beautify the streets down in that part of town. And as soon as we stopped at the stoplight, I looked up and I seen that sign. And I started joking around. I says, you never know what sign you're looking for. It could be the little birdie that told you, or it could be that sign right there. And I pointed up at it. She read that quote that was on there, and it basically answered her just like that. And I said, see, this is what we need to do. We need to slow down a bit and start paying attention to things around us, because things are telling us, guiding us how to live our life every day. It's just that today we get going so fast that sometimes we miss those signs and we don't get to see something that's there that's going to help teach us and share with us on how to live a better life.
You remember what that quote was?
No, but it's right on this end of Chinatown, big blue sign if you're around. It was a 2-verse thing. There's an Asian gentleman standing there, very elegant in his traditional regalia. It's a really good quote though. And
okay.
Yeah, signs are out there.
And then the fourth element is the spiritual. So what can you tell us about that aspect of the medicine wheel?
Spiritual, I could tell you just about everything I just said for the last 20 minutes, because that's the way I lead my life ever since I was introduced to our winter ceremonies. One of the things that I've been talking with elders about is our dreams, and a lot of elders have talked to me about them and how we control our dreams. And so the reason why I got into that was I was dreaming about a bear, you know. I was thinking, all right, I'm Indian now, I got a bear spirit, this and that, and everything else like that. But then a while later, in my dream, there I was going down to the river, and oh, there's my bear friend, I better go follow him. I started running along the river, following my bear friend, wondering what teaching was I going to learn today. Well, pretty soon we're walking through the gates of P&E, Pacific National Exhibition, the Carnival, and the bear was going on to a ride. And I was like, this was all a dream. It's like, what's going on? What's happening? And I talked to elders, and a lot of them said, well, what have you been thinking about lately? And because of what I was going through at the time, the one thing I could think of at that time was the P&E, and how much fun I had, and how much fun I used to have when I was younger and whatnot. And it kind of told me that my spiritual being wasn't being right at that moment for what I was going through. My mind was in the wrong area, and a lot of times with our spiritual being, our minds are racing so fast that we don't have a chance to look after it, and we don't have a chance, again going back to the cedar tree, we don't have a chance to walk down to Stanley Park and sit down there for a couple hours, for an hour or whatever, and just bring that spiritual being back into focus. We're always running around, oh, gotta go catch a bus, gotta get to my next interview, oh, gotta get to bingo. Oh, I didn't say bingo, but gotta get somewhere anyway, you know. So,
okay.
It's that we need to slow down a bit. Actually, funny thing is, my cousin Cease, I ran into at the bus stop down at the C-bus there, and she was ripping down the road. And I stuck my umbrella out in front of her, and she jumped, and she was like, oh, Jackson, oh, hey, I was just thinking about you, she said. And I said, oh yeah, what were you thinking about? She said, oh, I gotta be here, gotta be there, I got 10 things to do today, and I was racing down the road here, and I thought Jackson told me to slow down a bit. And then all of a sudden, there you are, at the bus stop. And I says, hey, there you go with the signs again. You never know. You start looking for that strength, and all of a sudden it's there. And it's just up to us to see what that strength is and what that being is that came to help us in looking after. So she was all better, and she was all happy, gave me a big hug, and then went zipping down the road. Slow down, sis! She turned around, raised her hands to me, and she slowly walked away. So hopefully later on I'm going to see her and let her see and find out how her day went and see if she did slow down.
All right, so we got about maybe 5 or 10 minutes left. Does anybody have any questions? I've got a few more, but if anybody has a question, maybe just raise your hand and feel free.
Anybody? Anybody?
No? That's okay. Maybe keep thinking about it. I've got a few more I'll ask.
You're lucky, because we're going to say $5 a question.
So I wanted to talk, we were talking a little bit about spirituality and or spiritual wellness. And one of the things I think of when I think of that is also a sense of humor and the importance of humor. And like, have you found talking to elders, you've talked to a lot of elders in different areas, is humor something that's used a lot with them?
Oh, it just ain't me trying to be funny. You know? I was sitting there talking to my nephew one day, and I was giving him teachings because he was having a hard time at the time, and about halfway through the conversation, about an hour into the conversation, he stopped and he looked at me and he says, "Uncle, you're just like an elder." I said, "Why? I haven't gotten up 10 times to go to the bathroom while I'm talking to you." He started laughing. He goes, "No," he says, "one minute you're sitting there talking to me real loud and stern," he says, and you know, I'm ready to cry because you look so mad, and you're talking to me and giving me heck and whatnot, and next minute you're making a joke. So I don't know whether to believe that you're mad or believe that you're happy." He says, "So you remind me of an elder." And I said, "Well, that's pretty much what I heard as I started learning. Just about every elder told me that when you're teaching, when you're sharing, don't be afraid to throw some humor into it. When we're standing out on the longhouse floor and we're talking, you'll hear somebody, like, it gets serious. Everybody's sitting there all quiet, you know, and listening to people talking, no matter who it is, sharing teachings. And then all of a sudden, that person will make a joke and the whole longhouse will bust out in laughter. Our longhouse seats over 1,000 people, by the way. And the elders always told me, you know, you can go in and you can teach and you can sound serious all day long, and they may listen to you. One or two of them may listen. But if you throw some humor in there, make them laugh, the majority of them are going to remember. Even if they weren't listening to everything, if you made them laugh, they're going to remember that much more. So our elders have always thrown the humor in when they're speaking. Mind you, there are some elders that don't know much humor, but they still have beautiful teachings, and we still sit there with respect and listen to them. And in doing so, very fortunate that some people call me an elder. But again, elder in training, and it's been good training. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, they say one of the first things to go when you're feeling not well is your sense of humor. So bringing that back in, and the fact that so many elders do use humor, it just sort of shows me that humor probably was an important part of traditional Aboriginal culture.
Very important. Yeah. It's just as important as sharing those tears. You need to share those emotions and let them out there the way they were meant to be.
Okay. So I was wondering, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about, you do a lot of work right now with the Anya, with youth in the city.
Yes.
And it's regarding trying to adjust to the city, is it? And because a lot of them are coming from a lot of different areas, right? Like remote communities, and then they come to Vancouver. Yeah. So how do you help them out?
I started working with Anya 11 years ago. My cousin Wes Nahanee was their skipper for a couple of months for the new 31-foot canoe that they have. And he was unable to fulfill his duties there because of another contract that he had. So he gave him my name. And I got a call from Anya 11 years ago asking if I could skip the canoe. I said, sure, why not? I need something to do. And so I went over and I met the Anya folks and started working with them. But because of the cultural teachings that were shared with me through our longhouse, I was asked if I would be able to share some of that with the youth down at Anya. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 11 years. A lot of them, they come from the four directions, different directions. Some of them are born here in Vancouver because their parents moved here when they were teenagers and stuff like that. So they never really got the opportunity to learn much of their own culture. And we're very fortunate now that in this day and age, our people around these territories are willing to acknowledge the territories that they live in. Myself as a Squamish / Coast Salish person, don't lay claim to this land. I don't own any land or whatever. The Creator put me here to look after it. The Creator put many other people here to look after it. So as Chiaxton, one of my duties is to share that cultural protocol and the cultural teachings with the youth, because they need encouragement to learn their own cultural protocols and the way their people have lived, even if they don't know who their people are. It's a beginning if you start learning about something, and then you can move on and start learning more about yourself. So for the last 11 years, I've been just sharing the culture that's been shared with me and learning, as well as encouraging them to seek out their people, and whether it be their original family or people that come from that area, to at least start trying to learn to identify who they are, because with identity of the ancestors, you identify yourself, you make yourself a better person.
Do you find that a lot of them, when they're coming from these areas, have they lost their identity? Have they their cultural values?
I wouldn't really say lost. I don't like that word lost, because you hear it so many times. You hear people getting up in front of media, in front of gatherings, saying, we lost our cultural identity. I was told one day by an elder, and I always share this with other people, that first being, that first person that came down to here, no matter who you call that person, they never came down with all the knowledge. They had to learn by example. Going back to the little birdie told me thing, they had to learn by watching the animals and that. And that's what I encourage the youth to do, is to try and live like our ancestors did, to try and think like our ancestors did, and to learn these things by watching all the different animals out there.
Okay then, well, are there anyone think of a question? Oh, okay, we have one. Okay, yeah, Josh?
Yeah, how often do you do those canoe journeys you were talking about?
So the question is, how often do you do the canoe journeys?
Canoe journeys I do every summer. I'm up to 4 journeys a summer now. I do tribal journeys, which started off of the Gadawas Festival in '93. That involves many different nations up and down the coast, of traveling to whoever's hosting on that particular year. This year we're going down to Olympia, Washington in July. I also do a canoe journey with various policing communities and youth, trying to get rid of the different stereotypes that police have about First Nations people, as well as trying to get rid of the stereotypes that First Nations people have of police. Because like I always like to say, a-holes and everything, so we need to learn to get by that and to learn to identify with people. I also do a local canoe journey with our kids in care in the Squamish Nation, taking those kids out because they don't get the cultural stuff that they should. So our people have been taking them out and showing them how to canoe, how to carve, how to weave, giving them different things. As well as I do a Fraser River run and paddle down the Fraser River with people, and that one's in honor of the salmon. And every once in a while I get invited out for a day trip or 2-day trip, but pretty much all throughout the summer. So if you want to go get a hold of Anya, I'll let you know. Yes, yeah. Hope to see you there. Yeah.
Was there another question? Yeah, Edna?
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
It's a good segue into your last comments. You had with respect to stereotypes. Mine's more, well, it's still in line with stereotypes just in terms of how you deal with that negative stereotyping amongst First Nations people. I know it's alive and well out there. Myths. We don't pay taxes. We get housing and health and education for free and so on and so forth. And I also want to thank you for touching on identity because I'm some Niskat, I come from the Niskat Nation and I'm really strong with respect to identity. And I try on a daily basis to push that message as hard as I could, fast and furious, because of our identities are really, really, really important. And you've also mentioned that we all come from the 4 directions. That's really important to know who you are, where you come from, where you originate from, your roots, your cultural roots. So thank you for that.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you, Edna. Did you have any response to that, or?
No, I just want to thank you for your comments.
Okay.
It always makes me feel good to be able to sit here and share with people, because I see so much want out there nowadays of people wanting to learn, and with stereotyping and all that, I was at a meeting yesterday at Cambie Street VPD station, and it was a meeting about the pulling together canoe journey that I do, trying to get rid of these stereotypes between First Nations people and police. And being an invited guest to a meeting yesterday at the police station, I showed up at 5 minutes after 5, and they closed the doors and locked them to the police station at 5 o'clock promptly. Well, at 5 after 5, I was sitting there knocking on the door. The 3 people that were standing there just kind of stood there and looked out the door at me, kind of weird, like, what the heck's this guy up to? And one of them, I don't know what happened, if they got on the phone to somebody else or what, but a few seconds later, there was about 5 other officers standing around in the hallway, because here's this long-haired native guy. I was dressed down at the time because I was out in the bush with a youth group. I was down in Stanley Park giving them histories. So here I am, kind of dirty from running around in the woods and whatnot, and smelling like moss. So I had this congregation of VPD around me until my sergeant friend stepped out of the elevator, walked over, and gave me a big hug. How you doing, brother? Those attitudes changed in an instant, just like that. And they all started smiling and whatnot. Before that, though, oh, you should have seen them. I was a total convict before that big hug. But I deal with this every day, being long hair, being native, and it's part of my job now, and that's why I work with the various policing communities, trying to teach them. Every once in a while I get to do cultural workshops with them to share like who we are as First Nations people. I get to sit down with certain groups at certain times and talk to them and let them know. Because as a young Aboriginal man, I was stopped quite a bit when I was younger, and a lot of times it was just because I looked over my shoulder at the car and it came back. I was told when I started the pulling together journey that I am one of 8 profiles that are within their system. I fit it to a T. Long hair, native, 5'8", 150 pounds. That's a lot of us out there. So, you know, you get to deal with it every day.
Okay, well, I guess with that, we'll thank you very much for coming here today and sharing your wisdom and your stories. I think it was very helpful for us. So why don't we all give Wes a nice hand here. Thank you all for attending, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Listen, and I hope you enjoyed it.